Hello and welcome to the RYLACast, the official podcast of Camp RYLA, Rotary District 5810. My name's Greg Tepper, our co-host for the evening. You know him, you love him, you treasure his friendship. He's the man they call Josey, Andrew Watts.
Well, thank you, Greg. That was a touching tribute.
That's what I was going for. There's one question and one question only for you on this June 27th, 2023, and that is, how's your air conditioning working at your house?
We are fingers crossed. This is going to sound like a brag, but it's not intended to. This evening, my lovely wife was like, it's cold in here. And like, I'm not messing with it, right? Because it is what it is at this point. You just set it and forget it. And we can cut this part out. I'm sorry, Erica. Yeah, I know. That was
To be clear, I'm not doing any editing on this podcast.
I've seen the suggested temperatures that the inside of the house should be, and that is too warm for me. So
that's gonna be a no from me.
That's gonna be a no for me. I do have a coworker, so I'm gonna counter it. I have a coworker who is always cold, and so she keeps her house above those temperatures. So we really cancel each other out there. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, there's balance there. Life's all about balance.
Yeah,
our AC is doing okay. I have issued the edict in our household, and this is basically the only edict I'm allowed to issue, is that all ceiling fans have to be on at all times.
Oh, that's a good edict.
We got to have air circulation. We got to have things moving. And what stinks, and I'm sure you guys run into this with Party P, is that kids want to go outside and they're too dumb to know that it's the surface of the sun outside.
Yes. Yeah. So, how do you handle that, you personally?
We go out very early. So it's like we're going to be out, and like for example today, now I went to my office but my wife is off for the summer, and she took the boys out into the backyard from like 8 until like 10:30. You know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, now we're going to be inside for the rest of the day, because as Rob Thomas once said in the hit Santana song Smooth, well, it's a hot one. This is the RYLACast, the official podcast of Camp RYLA, Rotary District 5810. We do thank you for spending a little bit of your day with us. Josey's still laughing off mic on that.
Yes.
Coming up here in just a little bit, we had a great conversation with Robby Gay, who went from oldest AC ever to one of the youngest counselors ever in the span of 12 months. Plus, he got married. We'll hear all about Robby Gay and his story coming up here in just a little bit. But first, we are going to kick it on over to Josey, who has assembled an exceptional segment here to start things off on this here 50 episode of the RYLACast. I don't remember what episode number we're on. I should probably.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds 50, like it's in the
54? 54.
You know what? Let's say it confidently. 54. Here's Josey.
Well, thank you, Greg. I took a page out of your playbook and I perused the Harvard Business Review.
It's basically might as well sponsor this podcast.
I rolled the dice and I was like, am I going to pick an article that Greg picked? We'll see. But I've got the big segment. So
you can tell how much we communicate before this podcast that we're actually on, and you're introducing the segment and you're like, I hope Greg didn't choose this.
You'll never know. And the title of the article is Managing Anxiety When There's No Room for Error. And I thought this was
that makes me anxious.
The crux of it is that, there are some jobs that allow for mistakes, and like, an artist or a woodworker, you can always start over. Yeah, there's a cost there, but like a neurosurgeon, you don't want them to have an off day, or a criminal defense lawyer can't really have an off day. And I thought this was very good because to me, that's a little black and white. But on a leadership podcast, it may feel like the jobs we're doing, there's no room for error. And that's just a personal thing. Like I was thinking about you and the magazine. We've had conversations about this too, where if there's a mistake in the magazine that's a result of somebody changing jobs after print, oh well, there's a date and time. But if there's a mistake in the print, it's in literal black and white, so it's there.
Already found a couple. Feeling great.
Oh dear.
It's nothing huge. It's like a word misspelled, but annoying.
Right. And that's kind of the somewhat of getting to the basics of anxiety, where overthinking and occurs, and overthinking is not problem solving. So this article basically talks about ways that you can maybe manage that anxiety and approach it with a different mindset. Because saying things like "be careful" to someone who's already trying to be careful just maybe adds to that mental load. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things you can do to lower the tension is you can distinguish between big and small mistakes. Because if you're just thinking about every mistake you could possibly make, that's going to distract you from the really big ones. So try to lighten the mental load by taking actions that lessen the risk of making the bigger mistakes. And so one thing that this article identifies that I laughed about, because Joni and I, this is something we say in our everyday life. You don't know what you don't know. And that's kind of to say blind spots that you're not aware of having, or maybe you think you understand something fully, but something happens and it turns out you don't have a good understanding. And these are risks or unknowns from situations that are so unexpected that they wouldn't even be considered when you're trying to figure out risks and planning your day. So just leave room for, if you take care of the big ones, you can leave some room for not knowing what you don't know. Mm-hmm. You can adopt risk reducing habits, like making a checklist. I'm not a list guy. I married a list person, and she makes lists for everything. And I've learned that lists kind of help you keep track of. I'm a kind of a shoot from the hip kind of guy, and having a list keeps me centered. I'm not. I know there's people, and by all means, this is a different structure for different folks type thing. There's no right way to do this. I know people who wake up every day and the first thing they do is they make a list of all the things they have to do that day, or mm-hmm. like they go to the office and they show up and they go, blah, 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 blah. I only do that when there's like a certain threshold, like there's a certain threshold of things I have to accomplish that day. Do you know what I mean? Yes.
Like, if I've got like 9 things to do and I am actively afraid I'm going to forget one, I'll do that. But like, mm-hmm. otherwise, I feel like a list just stresses me out.
Well, and so that's interesting, because this, obviously it's not a catch-all for everything, but for if you're like me, and I'm probably somewhere in between. I'm not going to make a list of everything I'm going to do for the day, but when I get a little overwhelmed, it's helpful to have something I can come back to and cross off of. So that's one of the tips they had for managing your anxiety. Play on your strengths. And use your strengths to kind of mitigate your weaknesses, and consider how your strengths can help you solve specific problems. And one of those strengths may be, or if you're having trouble thinking of what kind of a unique strength you have is, the suggestion is to ask yourself, what are you willing to do that 95% of other people are not? Which I found that interesting. It's kind of a way to think about what you do better than others. Mm. And then collaborating with others focused on the same issue, which is a helpful tip. But I don't know about you. There's not really a lot of people. at work, we're all kind of working on our own things. We're all collaborating towards a goal, but that one may be a little bit more difficult to find. And then this last one, consider a hobby that allows you to make mistakes. So kind of add balance in your life and give you a chance to make some mistakes, like gardening. Apparently gardening is a low risk, high reward hobby, as I've heard.
Yeah, I feel like you can always just chalk it up to be like, like nature. What are you going to do?
Exactly.
How I feel about my lawn sometimes. Like, what are you going to do? Nature.
Man, one of my neighbors is big lawn guy, and I got bad news for him because he lives next to me.
that's really defeatist, Josey. But I appreciate it. I appreciate you knowing who you are.
That's how I manage my anxiety.
This is weird. We're going off the rails now. I have actively looked into installing artificial turf in our backyard, and we might be at like a year away from that, because like we're really trying, but like there's some things beyond our control that might lead us to having a little bit of astroturf back there.
Okay, so one thing, we did not plan this. That conversation has been in my household as well. But what? I feel like it would be the heat would be, speaking of air conditioning, I feel like that would increase the heat back there.
From what I understand, and again, hi, welcome to this show about lawns. From what I understand, we've made great strides technologically recently.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's how you manage your anxiety when there's no room for error.
Josey, thank you very much, and thank you to the Harvard Business Review for their continued support of this podcast.
Yes, and Alice Boys specifically.
We're heading headlong into our interview with Robby Gay. We had a great conversation with him. He's got a whole lot going on, like a shocking amount of things going on. Hear it straight from him. Here's our conversation with Robby Gay here on the RYLACast. Oh, Josey.
Oh, Greg.
We continue our series of big name guests here on the RYLACast. And let's go to the hotline right now. You did pay the bill for the hotline, right?
We're about to find out, Greg.
Okay, let's go to the hotline and see if we can connect with one of the breakout stars of Camp RYLA 2023. We think we're joined by Robby Gay. Robby, do you read us?
I read, Greg. I'm here, loud and clear. Good to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking some time out of, let's start here, out of married life. You got married like 8 days after camp?
I did, in fact. Yeah. June 17th.
Jeez. Okay. So when you left for camp, you told tell me your wife's name.
Avery.
You told Avery, hey, I know that we are going to be experiencing the biggest and most important and wonderful day of our lives here in 2 weeks, but I got to go run off and do egg drop with some friends. Is that about how the conversation went?
That's pretty much how it went. And there was about 30 seconds of being, stressed and upset before she realized that she didn't have to pretend to care about my opinion. And then it was great. And wedding planning was never better. So it was great, honestly.
You're an old pro, man. You've already got this thing. As two old married men, you have got this thing on lock. Well done.
Thank you.
This is great juxtaposition too, man. I thought I was going to just mow through that word, but it tripped me up. So we had Crystal Johnson Epperson, who got married and then went to camp. And now we've got Robby, who went to camp as his final, is kind of his bachelor party before getting married.
It was a good bachelor party. I'm not going to lie. Had a lot of fun.
Oh my God. I love the idea of a RYLA bachelor party. Oh, wow. Yeah, let's get wild. That's right. We're going to go do some canoeing.
Yes, we did.
Oh, that's great.
Well,
Um,
Robby, let's start with this as we get into the meat of this conversation. Can you tell us a little bit about your RYLA story and what brings you to this podcast?
Yeah. I mean, I think it always starts camper year 2018. I was the camper who day one, day two had not bought in, like, at all. I was thinking, what is this weird kind of cult-like atmosphere? Why is everyone so supportive? Like, almost in a fake it until you make it way. It almost didn't seem genuine, and so I was kind of jaded about that for a while. And then I kind of had an honest conversation with myself that said, okay, well, I'm stuck here for a week. I might as well make the most of it, right? And I kind of made that switch and then immediately saw the value. And my only regret was that I wasn't that way to begin with, and didn't, get to experience that for the 2 days. And so I love the atmosphere. I love the people. I had to come back. I kept serving in any way possible that I could. Came back as an assistant counselor the following year. Then there was some COVID shenanigans, obviously. Came back as an assistant counselor again. And then most recently as a counselor this past year, which was a great experience. I love the cabin. We say at camp that the cabin's where the magic happens. I really believe that, and I've enjoyed my time in all 4 cabins that I've been a part of, and really kind of taking a step from being a part of that magic to facilitating that has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life.
That's great, and thanks for setting the scene for everybody there from your RYLA story. So what do you do now, Robby, and what's your everyday life look like?
Well, it's a little bit tumultuous. There's an SAT word for you, Greg. Right now,
Thank you for that.
So I graduated college in May. Did my bachelor party at RYLA, like we said, and then got married on June 17th. And in about a week to 10 days here, I'm moving to Washington, D.C. To start my first job out of college. And I'll be a consulting analyst at a smaller company up there. But lots of changes going on in my life right now. So I'm looking forward to a routine. But I've kind of loved the craziness for the last month or so. But yeah, life has been pretty crazy for the last month, and nothing really consistent about it. But I'm looking forward to that beginning soon.
So then let me throw you a curveball on a question I just thought of, which is what I think responsible journalists are supposed to do. I don't know. I wouldn't know. You mentioned how crazy and how wild the last 5 weeks of your life had been. With camp and getting married, and now you're about to move across the country. Can you point to anything? Can you point to ways that RYLA helped prepare you for this particular, let's say, upheaval in your life?
Yeah. And I think you used the key word there, prepare. One of the ones that kind of steps that I'll talk about. Ceaseless preparation. We had I'd say 90% of the wedding completely planned before camp, the move planned before camp. We loaded the shipping pod that's going up to Washington after camp, but before the wedding. So really, we just had to have our ducks in a row to be able to pull it all off. So that was the first step. But anyone in the RYLA family is good at that. Everyone kind of seems to be good at getting their ducks in a row, and even the campers, right when they get there, are pretty good at that. It's when things go wrong. It's especially when things go wrong and there's another person involved. And so, I have a pretty laid back personality in general, but even times I have to remind myself that hey, you just got to go with the flow. You got to roll with the punches, things like that. I think adaptability is a strength that I have. I think people had to learn that during COVID, and so that's something that I pride myself with, is being adaptable, and not just adaptable, but adaptable quickly. Things happen and you just have to forget and move on. And so I have a fairly radical approach on that, and just, so what can I do now? And so I kind of have to look at things like that when things are so, in upheaval, as you said.
So adaptability, about the elephant in the room is consulting analyst. Sounds like, if on previous RYLACast guests we've had fake job and not fake job, consulting analyst feels like fake job, but also something that you have to have adaptability for. So is that, it also sounds like you can't really speak a lot. Maybe you had to sign some NDAs or something. Is that a direction you were headed, kind of not as a direct result, but after, your mindset of being in a cabin 4 times, and your experiences at camp? Is that something that you've gravitated towards, or how'd you end up there?
Yeah, so I never thought this was what I was going to be doing even a year ago. And I think being adaptable has kind of led into that, but also my experience at camp. One of the things that I have especially worked on in the past, 5 years or so, is kind of like my interpersonal skills with other people, like making connections, things like that. I had to do that as a resident assistant in college, and then obviously within cabins at camp. And so last summer I was a risk analyst at a bank. And so that was a more less people focused job. And I realized that I actually don't like that very much. I have kind of flipped this into being, one of my strengths is dealing with people and solve problems that have people involved in them, not just, I majored in math. So like I'm good at solving abstract math problems and stuff like that. But I've also learned people. And so I want to apply that kind of towards my job. But, I was even in the recruiting cycle that led to this job, I was looking for finance jobs. And then I landed this one, and it all just seemed to come together. It was in a city that I wasn't particularly interested in until I decided to throw out a few applications there. And then this was the one that got back to me and moved quickly. And so things really just came together, and I had to just jump on that opportunity.
So I do want to go back to camp for a moment and ask you about specifically your last 2 camp experiences, which have been, I would say, unique in the grand history of camp. You got the rare double AC year where you got to be the world's oldest AC. And then like the next year you got to be like the world's youngest counselor. Can you in any way sum up how these last 2 years have been, how different they've been, what different experiences they've been?
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's a different experience every year at camp, obviously, especially in a cabin. But it was interesting because having been an assistant counselor twice, especially at a more mature age, I kind of realized that the role of an assistant counselor is kind of to be the right hand man of the counselor. And so, I've been an assistant counselor for John Warder and for Travis Craig, and they both have different styles. I have a different leadership style than both of them, but as an assistant counselor, like it was my job to kind of like really just reinforce everything that they were teaching and kind of how they were honing the campers and leading the campers. And then I had to do it myself. And that was a big transition for me, to not necessarily kind of feeding off of somebody else's style and reinforcing it, but like coming into my own and formulating my own style, which I say that and I don't even know what it is. I think I did a good job this year, but I have no idea like what that even is, and I don't even know if really anyone does. But kind of coming into that myself has been a challenge this year, but it's a welcome challenge that I hope to grow at in the future too.
Real quick before we ask you to plug something, those are when you were rattling off, Warder and Travis Craig, and then got paired with Leah. It feels like a really strong cast of characters you've been with the past couple of years. I guess I don't really have a question unless unless you want to plug what was the best part of being paired with Leah this year?
It was definitely her preparation. I talked about that a little bit. And one thing that I didn't prepare for as much as I should have logistically was camp. I had been a camper and then an assistant twice. And kind of the shock moment for me was, okay, all the campers have arrived. Let's go outside and do the tennis ball name game. Oh, wait, I have to do that and facilitate that right now. And it's happening. And so I was able to lean on Leah throughout the week on just kind of like very logistical steps of how camp is run. As an assistant counselor, like you know everything that's happening, but you don't have that look behind the curtain. And so having that experience there was tremendous. And I owe her a big one for shepherding me along this past week. But she's over prepared in every sense, and it came in clutch.
That's great. So now it comes in the time in every RYLACast interview where we give you the floor, Robby, to plug something: book, podcast, moving company, in-laws house, anything. The floor is yours.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a role model of mine. I did have this question in advance, so I kind of got to think about it for a little bit. I get very into kind of niche subjects, which I think everyone kind of has their own. And so one of mine is ultra running. And am I an ultra runner? No. Do I aspire to be? Not really. Do I even really run occasionally and not fast? But I like to follow ultra running for some reason. So one of the best ultra running woman, her name is Courtney DeWalter, just came in 8th place in Western States 100-mile ultra running race overall. So 8th place overall. She beat tons of men in the race, and she broke the previous women's record by 80 minutes, which it's a 100-mile race. So I think her final time was somewhere 15 hours something, but she beat it by 80 minutes, and she's just, I admire her work ethic, obviously, and everything, but and I don't know her, but she seems to be somebody who carries herself very cheerfully all the time. I think about some other sports greats like Kobe Bryant, notably, has the killer mentality and everything like that, but she kind of runs and leads with grace and cheerful attitude, and so that's something that I really appreciate and saw that and was happy and encouraged by that.
So finally, Robby, before we let you go, because I know you're a busy man. I've been married for it'll be 11 years next month. Josey has been married for 5 years, correct, Josey?
Correct.
5 years. Their anniversary is in March. Josey and I know a lot about each other. We've done this podcast for a while. You've been married for 15 minutes. I am interested in what kind of marriage advice you can give, not just us, but to the wider world.
Okay. I'd say I love to laugh. I'm a big fan of comedies and stand-up comedy, and people tell me that I'm funny, and so I like making other people laugh. I'd say it's not that deep, and it doesn't have to be that serious all the time. And so, I mean, that's my favorite thing to do with my wife is laugh. And so do a lot of that. Be as lighthearted as you possibly can. There are times to be serious, obviously, but just have fun. Like it's meant to be fun. It's supposed to be the person that you want to spend your life with. So have fun with it.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with that. Josey, you got any notes on that?
No notes.
Okay. Robby Gay, the newly betrothed Robby. Does betrothed mean married or does that mean engaged? I don't know. I said a word without knowing what it means.
We're all nodding in agreement.
Yep. Awesome. Robby, appreciate your time, my friend. Congratulations again on the nuptials and enjoy that move out to DC, man.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, guys.
There he is, Robby Gay, our guest here on this here RYLACast. We appreciate his time. He's got a lot of things going on between getting married and going to camp and like moving. I think we did the interview. I think he was at his mother and father-in-law's house. Mm-hmm. So like they're just moving around before they do the big move to DC. So a lot going on, but there's nobody I trust to handle that more than Robby.
And graduating college, I feel like gets swept under the rug in all the things he has going on. But yeah.
Oh yeah, that remarkable guy there, Robby Gay, and we appreciate his time. All right, Josey, it's time for me to bring us home, and I'd like to introduce you to something that I found recently. I want to introduce you to a gentleman by the name of Justin Sua. Justin Sua is he works for the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays are a baseball squadron and play Major League Baseball. And don't tune out. I know people tune out whenever Tepper starts talking about sports.
The Rays are good. The Rays are good.
Well, the Rays are good too. But like I promise you, this is more RYLA than it is the sports. He is, and this is like a new, like over the past like 5 years or so thing in baseball. He is their head of mental performance for the Tampa Bay Rays. He was the head of mental conditioning at the IMG Academy before that. He's a kind of a remarkable guy. And so his job is to talk to baseball players, and specifically kind of what they focus on a lot is on the batter's perspective, which if you're not a baseball fan, if you were to hit 300, you would be like an all-star player, right? If you were to hit 300, that means that you are failing 70% of the time. So baseball can be a cruel sport, is what I'm saying. And it's his job to work with them on their mental performance. And so he did an interview with this website. It's called thedaily.coach. So the Daily Coach, but it's thedaily.coach. And he did an interview with them on their Q&A series. This is a couple of weeks ago, but I put it in my file of things to tell Josey about. And it's a brief interview that's really good. The headline is no one else is beating up on you more than you. And he kind of talks through some of the things that he talks with his players about. Specifically, people are talking about, he talks about how he believes confidence is overrated. And what he's saying is that like having confidence is obviously a good thing, but if you build your competence, then your confidence will follow. And people who are focused just on building confidence are really just kind of like grabbing at something that's more like nebulous, which I thought was interesting. The other thing he talked about is he has a big emphasis on small victories. And he compares it to like physics, of talking about how an object in motion stays in motion. And so if you get this one little win, that's going to get you forward. That's going to move you forward, get you on to bigger wins and things like that. We want results, like big sweeping results, but there's a lagging effect in that. And I thought that was really interesting because he said, I'll just quote here from this interview he did. It's so easy to get down on yourself and identify your deficiencies and weaknesses. But if you pause, confidence comes from doing what you said you were going to do and stacking wins on your own private personal scoreboard. It's important to say, I'm winning as well. and there's power that comes with that. And I thought that was really interesting. So I dug a little deeper. The interview is worth your time. It's kind of a brief read on thedaily.coach with Justin Sua, the head of mental performance with the Tampa Bay Rays. But what I also found is that he's got his own podcast.
Okay.
And it's called the Increase Your Impact podcast. Increase Your Impact. And he puts out a little episode. It's like a 2 to 4 minute little vignette every weekday. Every weekday he just throws a little something up, and it's like here's a little burst. And I've been listening to it, and I think it's really good. I think it kind of helps center you. I like to start my day with it on my drive to work. So the podcast is called Increase Your Impact with Justin Sua. It's Justin, and then it's SU' is his last name. So I wanted to plug that because I found that to be particularly interesting, and it's I think it's you're talking a little bit about anxiety. Here's a guy who has to deal with players who are being paid millions of dollars to fight through their own anxiety, and it's an interesting podcast, an interesting read. So I would encourage everybody to go listen to that.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. And then also, like, I think almost every Major League Baseball player now has a like somebody who works like a mental performance coach or something like that, which makes sense. And I would imagine that, like, I don't know if like the Cowboys have one, but like you have to imagine they at least have like a mental health professional like on staff.
Right. And I would bet that a lot of individual players may have an individual mental health performance coach. That baseball note, if I can just continue the trend of getting off topic, I watched a lot of College World Series baseball over the past couple days, and your note about batting 300 reminded me there was a player last night for LSU, and they flashed up when a particular player who batted ahead of him in the order was on base versus that batter's batting average with him not on base. And when it was not on base, that batter's batting average was like 250, which very good, right? Still very good. With that person on base, his batting average was 690. And Jeez. So I just go ahead and surround yourself with people you want to be around.
Oh, I like that. That's very good. Also, probably a statistical anomaly, but that's okay. I love that.
Right.
I love that. Okay. That's going to do it for us. We do appreciate you spending a little bit of your day with us. We hope you'll visit our website, RYLA5810.org. All sorts of good stuff on there. And yeah, I hope you will tell a friend about the podcast. Please rate and subscribe. Yeah, we haven't been pushing this hard. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast. Like if you are listening to this podcast and you like it, go give it 5 stars and like leave a comment. Like be like, hey, Josey sounds great. Something like that. We will read those affirmations. It'll help us in a big way. But most importantly, please tell a friend about the RYLACast. And here with an antiquated way of telling a friend about the RYLACast is Josey.
Well, and before I get to the antiquated way of telling a friend about a RYLACast, that the post-game episode, big reactions, positive reactions from our fans. Multiple fans were letting
people
me know.
Love us.
The people love us.
The people love Crystal. Let's be real.
That's true. It's summertime. It's baseball season. So go ahead and if you can't get out to the ballpark, buy you some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. And the Cracker Jack box has a gift. So typically it's like a little trinket. You've probably seen them at camp over the past couple of years, but assemble your own Cracker Jack box, and in it put a little a note, maybe like a message in a bottle, to listen to the RYLACast. And then if you or your friends or children are having like a lemonade stand outside, sell that peanut and Cracker Jack box, maybe with a little baseball theme, maybe the natural theme music going on. And that's how you can spread the word and tell people to listen to the RYLACast. Antiquated way, because you're incorporating, some American
Cracker Jack's
pastime
too.
Yeah, Cracker Jack's very
old. If you think about it, as we just close this episode of meandering with more meandering, it does feel like someone from Cracker Jack corporate got inside baseball and they were like, how do we get our name in the most famous song in this sports history? Right?
Here's one better. Do you know who makes Cracker Jacks? Who's the person behind Cracker Jack?
I'm literally looking this up right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know either.
Cracker Jack, it's molasses flavored caramel coated popcorn if you're interested. Oh, wow. Wow. You know who owns it now? Frito-Lay. Big
Of course.
Chips.
Big Chip.
Big Chip. And they're owned by Pepsi. Big Cola. It's all corporate.
It's all corporate.
Anyway, thanks for listening to the RYLACast. Josey, thanks for your courage.
Thanks, Greg.
Talk to you guys next time on the RYLACast.